There's a section that's just for FIs to look for, right? And Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher created Thorn, and that actually goes towards the online, like Craigslist. They had a link that you could purchase Craigslist and a bed page. Those are all shut down. But what they do is they go after the online advertisement for that stuff. So we have to educate everybody, right? From all different angles, both on elder abuse and human trafficking, human smuggling.
Welcome in, everybody. You're listening to Wrestling Payments, a podcast where we help payment professionals contend with the challenges of modernizing their payments operations and identifying ways to build for the future. If you're interested in payments innovation and modernization, you're in the right place. Now, let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling Payments. I have a special guest on today. I have Patty Presta. Patty, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Patty Presta, and I've known Joey for 27 years.
Very long time. So just trying to get into this, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun when we get started, but we're trying to
Absolutely.
do a podcast. So Patty recently rejoined NEACH after 20 years?
Yep.
After 20 years, and I have to tell you, we've gone through a lot of hirings and a lot of departures recently, and it's funny because there's those press releases, right? And it says, "Oh, we'd like to introduce you and welcome this person to the NEACH membership." Okay, great. We put your post out, boom, 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 boom. People were responding. Patty taught me how to do the AAP. Patty was my first workshop ever.
I saw that. I was actually still only at NEACH for like a week, and I was trying to find my way around. And I happened upon the internet, the website, and I saw this cute post from Sean. And because Sean, you and I were there. You've been there the longest. And then we hired Sean maybe a year or two after I was there. And this great little sweet thing he said about me, and he was a little boy when I first met Sean, was a little kid. But all the posts were really awesome. So I was really excited to come home after my sabbatical.
That was really fun to see because we don't do as many live events, in-person events anymore. So all the names, that we knew back then were all popping up. It was nice. But let's talk about that. So this episode is currently called Wrestling with Patty Presta. I don't know if that name is going to survive, but well, let's do the origin question now. So I'd like to ask, how did you get into payments? Did you always want to be a payments person?
No, I wanted to be a nurse. And I don't think anybody listening to this podcast said, when I grow up, I want to work in the ACH, or I want to process checks, right? So I actually was living, in Boston where I grew up. And between jobs, I just relocated back from Texas after getting married. And long story short, they were looking for someone temporary while your secretary was out on maternity leave. And I was actually, and this is funny, Joe and I were talking about, we were talking about this earlier. I was the secretary, and then they wanted me to develop a website. I don't even know how to program my TV clicker. And I'm doing Adobe PageMaker and meta types and, marketing stuff, right? And then we had an instructor or a teacher that quit, and Harry, the CEO at the time, came out and said, "Do you want to start teaching ACH?" I'm like, "What?" So we always talk about every member that we meet. They will say, "I was a teller, and then I got thrown in the deep end in the operations," and that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah.
It was super interesting because you didn't invent training at NEACH, but you were like a milestone, right? You were like whether it was the timing or whether it was the way the network was developing. People look to you as, Patty was the trainer. You weren't the last trainer, but you were the singular trainer for all of NEACH.
It's funny, Joe, when we were talking about me being gone, I just 2 years ago was at a payments conference, not to payments conference, and a girl came up to me and gave me a hug. I had no idea. And she goes, "It's me," and I won't say her last name, but "It's me, Amber." And she was a she was a member at NEACH, I think in Connecticut, and literally started coming to my classes when she was just out of high school. And now here she is, a grown woman, right? And it was just phenomenal that she like remembered me, and it was awesome. Yeah. So
And her career has, just like you with an origin story, she had an origin story, and where is she now, right? She's at
yeah,
a national
really
conference.
cool. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
We have a story to tell. We're going to tell the story of Patty. And Sean and I were talking, I don't know if you heard it, before the session, and this is like classic wrestling. You are from the classic wrestling era.
Like the Hulk Hogan era.
The Hulk Hogan, the Ricky Steamboat. You could be in the Hall of Fame now. We don't know when your induction is. But back in the day, what were you teaching? What was the complexity of what you were teaching at the time?
Man. Okay, Joe. It was PPDs and CCDs. And then came, let's try to get people on direct deposit. And some of the states in New England back in the day, they could mandate if they already had 100%. So like say Connecticut or Massachusetts or Maine, all the people in the hospital have direct deposit. We hire you, you're on direct deposit or else you don't have a job here, right? So we did a lot with the Fed, with some of the folks at the Fed going around to Osram, Sylvania and this big, huge hospital in Bangor, Maine, right? Trying to get people on direct deposit. That was it. And then what came this thing where you take your check and go to like CVS and they capture that check and create this thing called an electronic payment, right? That's what we were doing, Joe, right?
Right? No,
It
I
was
remember.
simple, but that was like, oh God, I got to learn about these e-check things, the RCK and the POB,
That was
right?
a big innovation at the time. So for the folks that are listening and how payment systems develop, back in the day, that was, direct deposit was probably at 60 to 70%. And
Yep.
the work of the association was to promote direct deposit. Were you with us when we did the direct payment stuff?
Yep.
All the utility companies?
Yep. Yes, I was. And remember, the Fed did a study, and don't quote me on the year, but 97, 98. The people understood what direct deposit was, but they didn't understand direct payment because we called it easy pay, quick pay, enroll pay. But the number one, Joe, I'm going to ask you because you're a man, what was the number one reason that someone would not sign up for direct deposit, according to the Fed?
Because they didn't want their significant other to know how much they made.
Exactly. But
Yep.
so look at the time. The time has gone like, yeah. And now you're into same day ACH, instant payments, AI, P2P. I mean, it's just crazy.
Crazy. So let's talk about that. You were with NEACH again. I think of it as a pivotal time with us. Harry was the newer president. He was definitely a forward-looking guy. We had gone from traditional bankers as the executive directors of the association to Harry, who was an everyday guy. We talked about things in everyday ways. And you were the trainer. You got us into, didn't you? We used to do everything as a workshop. Weren't you the first one to use the phone for training?
We didn't. Yeah, really. I mean, we did all our classes and our workshops live. I drove all over New England, right? All over New England. And we started webinars. And I remember the platform we used. I don't even know if they're still around, but yes. Yep. We go into the
Fascinating.
conference room. It was, yeah.
And then you decided to hit a bigger pond, and you left us. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah. I
argument.
went to the West Coast.
It's okay. But
Trust me, when I think about it, yeah. But I thought I did. And it was gone 20 years, and it's crazy how fast that went by.
But you did lots of, so you walked into NEACH to be the replacement receptionist for, a maternity leave. And all of a sudden you were the trainer, you learned everything about the ACH, and you pivoted when you went out there. Can you talk a little, I'm gonna sit back and just listen for a little while, but can you talk about how your life pivoted, how your content pivoted at that time?
Yeah, Joe. Like I said earlier, nobody says when I grew up I want to work in payments, right? You want to be a fireman or a nurse or whatever. So, I always had this passion for elders because I was a candy striper back in the day when there really was the pink and white Pinnafords and CNA for years. And so then I met this woman who now works with the CFPB 20 plus years ago that started a nonprofit in San Francisco called Elder Financial Protection Bureau. So I started with her. WestPay actually they helped her start this nonprofit, educating financial institutions on what to look for elder financial exploitation. Then I would start volunteering on my own time to go around to over 60s, church groups, nursing homes to educate elders. So I was very much, that was my passion. And working with both the financials, because you want to educate everybody. You want to let financial institutions know what are the signs, now, and again, in the olden days, there were a lot different signals or signs you looked for when they came into the branch. Post-COVID, you weren't seeing them. Now you're looking at their online behavior. And then I ended up stumbling into the prison system, which is, I don't have enough time to get how I did that, but I started working on death row at San Quentin Folsom. But then they were looking for a facilitator for a restorative justice. It was a 26-week program for human traffickers. So then from that, I became involved with a couple of Seattle Against Slavery and the STEP Project and getting involved in nonprofit and bringing that. There really wasn't a lot of training, Joe, at that time to fund institutions because they're moving these funds that literally fund a lot of times terrorism. They're funneling those funds through our banks and credit unions. So that was a whole other. There are a lot of similar. When you look at the victim of human trafficking or human smuggling and an elder, those physical symptoms, but online transactions are obviously much different. So that's really where I developed those two passions out there on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now you are back. Welcome back.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to where it all started.
Are you going to go back to teaching PPDs and CCDs, or what do you hope to do?
Absolutely. I love that. I love talking about D&Es and reclamations, and Reg E isn't my favorite thing, but yeah, consumer protection. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. No, and Sean and I, when I talked about coming back to NEACH, he said to me, he knew about my passions with human trafficking and elder financial exploitation, but he said, "But are you still passionate about everything else?" I said, "Absolutely, absolutely, yeah." But it's crazy how fast things are moving. I mean, really, Joe, you've been around longer than I've been 27 years. I know you're longer than that. So to see how quickly things have moved from point A to point B is crazy.
Right. No, I was listening to you talk about the elder abuse, and you said you did that 20 years ago, and you want to say something like, "Oh, but it's gotten so much better now." And no, it
No,
hasn't.
in fact, it's getting worse because of a few reasons. The baby boomers. Now, I'm the last year, so I'm 1964. I'm just going to say my age. So, but the baby boomers are the hugest, they're the biggest population. So now they're all getting older and the cognitive decision making is right. So unfortunately, number one, we're going to see it rise because there's more elders. And number two, you've got so many sophisticated online scams that are going on through the internet and RoboCop calls and voice recognition, and your grandson's in prison. So I want to just tell a quick story, Joe, if I can.
Please, no,
I have a dear friend that is a retired district attorney out of California, and he now volunteers for AARP. And I just could sit here with stories, but there's one particular story that I want our members to know, okay? So an elder lady calls her across the street neighbor and says, "Can you help me? I have to go to Walmart to buy a bunch of debit cards, and I have a lot of cash. Can you take me with you?" He went over the house and said, "Well, where did you get this cash?" She said, "Well, I got an email that I had to issue $18,000. I went to my bank. I withdrew $18,000. She's 92. Withdrew $18,000 in cash and wanted him to take her to Walmart to get debit cards, prepaid cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he took her back to her institution. Now, this man is a judge, right? Said to the teller, "I want to speak to the manager." The manager came out and said, "How did you let this woman, number one, not ask her any questions behind closed doors as to why she's taking this money out. And how did you physically let her walk out with that kind of cash on her? The financial institutions, that should never happen, right? So our members need to know, that I thought that maybe we had a better grasp of that stuff, but there's still so much teaching to do.
There's lots of different people today and lots of different opinions today. And someone may be thinking as you tell that story, well, it's her money and she can do what she wants with that. Okay, maybe.
Yep.
Yes, she can do what she wants with her money. But just I think you probably taught this, just a series of, how you doing today? Oh, wow, this is an unusual deposit or withdrawal.
Open-ended, right.
Just those little questions that would
Yep.
trigger that, oh yeah, I'm gonna go buy $18,000 worth of prepaid cards.
Right.
Well, yeah, that makes sense, of course.
Right.
Why wouldn't anyone do prepaid? No.
Right. Ask
No.
those open-ended questions. You've never withdrew cash before. This wire to Canada, you've never sent a wire. Or the cash that do you want us to do a cashier's check for you? Who do you want it to make it out to? Asking those questions. And then when they, before they'd walk in with their abuser, their grandson, their new boyfriend, girlfriend, separate them.
Right.
Separate them, ask
Right.
them those questions. And yeah. So yeah.
And again, it's, it is I think it is a balancing act between privacy and, full disclosure, but there's a balance there. And I know there's at least a few questions that just the act of going in to withdraw $18,000. Now, if she went in every week and withdrew $18,000 and maybe she drove down to the casino every weekend,
God
great.
love her. Yeah.
That's
Right.
what she wants to do.
Right.
None of your business. But the unusual, and you're going to go get prepaid, it's just
Out of the norm, right?
warning lights should be flashing. Wow, that was a really good story. And they got the money redeposited.
Yeah,
Everything
they
was
did. But you know what, Joe? There are way more stories when that money is gone,
Yeah.
And it's tough. Yeah.
It's very tough, very tough. And, we have those examples that we hear about. One of them was that casino trip. And, the elderly gentleman came in with a really young female acquaintance. And they were very clear that, do you understand what's going on here? And
Yes.
in this case, he was very clear on what was going on, even though it couldn't go on for that long. 'cause
Yeah,
the money
and
would go.
the family, like they'll say, Dad, this girl, we think it's none of your business, it's my money, I'll do it. So there's very sensitive, and when you're a bank or a credit union, the family members are the worst because they're telling you, like you said, it's none of your business, it's my money, I'll do what I want with it. One of the first cases, the very first cases, the younger woman you brought up with the casino, there was a woman who was in her early 40s, and I was around that same age at the time. She had several boyfriends. She had breast cancer and was trying to get money for. No, this was her shtick, right?
Oh.
Trying to get money for reconstructive surgery. So this was her deal with these boyfriends, these elderly, and so we think that men. The younger man's abusing the older ladies, but it goes both ways too. So it's all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, from a very personal perspective, my brother, I don't know if you met my oldest brother.
Yeah.
The oldest one, Tommy.
Yeah.
So, sorry, let's not say any names. So he had a Russian girlfriend, an online girlfriend, who needed a visa. To which I said, no, she doesn't. She's not real. She's not going to come here. She doesn't need a visa. I could not. I'm in the industry.
And you are the perfect person to educate this man. Yeah.
Could not convince him that it wasn't really a visa and she really wasn't a person. And, he didn't want to hear it. So I would think that it could get better in this age, but it's
not just, like your brother was, I don't know, in his 40s probably, right, 50s. But it's not just lonely, naive people, right? That happens all the time. But the elders, I think, and I talk to so many elders that they're on point. They know about the grandson scam call. They are on point. It gets really weird till they have that cognitive they start to get dementia, and that's where it starts to get those savvy. My mom's wicked computer savvy. She's great, right? I said the word wicked. All right, well, we're in Boston, so we can do
We're in
that.
Boston. It's
But,
okay.
but so, yeah, the trouble, I think, mostly is the sweetheart scams because they're older, they're lonely, they have no companionship. And, of course, when you get to the age where you can't make decisions for yourself anymore.
Can
But
you
you'll
mention?
see, go ahead.
You mentioned. I just want you to define it. The grandson scam, because I hear a lot of those. It's what's the social engineering of it? I'm in a rush. I'm in a panic. It has
I'm
to
in
happen now.
jail. I need
I'm
bail.
in jail.
Yeah.
And I need bail money.
And my mother has gotten them, and she'd say, I know my Brandon would never be in jail, and she'd hang up. But what's scary now, Joe, is, we know this, and I try to tell friends this. I don't answer the phone when it doesn't say Joe Casali. I don't answer it. If it's someone, it says insurance company or whatever, they'll leave a message. But all they have to say is, I answer the phone, go, hello, hello, and then they take my voice, and they can record, yes, I agree, and all this really scary stuff. So, we need to all learn that. But when you get the elders, they're more trusting, right? They just
Right. And more than once, I watch a lot of YouTube. More than once, you see the whole story of, "Hi, I'm calling. Your computer is malfunctioning. Let me help you."
That's actually the biggest elder scam right now is the
Yeah.
IT support. That is the biggest one right now. Yep.
Yeah. And just for the audience, and if you're not familiar with it, just real quick, they get you to give them access to your machine. They get you to log on to your banking site, and then all of a sudden they've deposited too much money in your account. It's a fake screen. It's not a real deposit. And then they get you to withdraw the money, send the prepaid cards back, which sounds, what business would say, oh, just put the money, go to CVS and put the money
Yeah, I
on a
know,
prepaid card
really.
and send it back. But you're caught in that rush of things.
And that's what they do. You said rush. They make it very quick and urgent, and that's what gets people, whether they're our age or an elder, to get very flustered and just do it. But the IRS isn't going to call you. The electric company's not going to tell you you're going to be shut off unless you come and mail us prepaid card. I mean, but yeah, it's crazy out there. And the thing is I guess I would say, and I've been saying this, Joe, for almost 30 years, the bad guys are always one step ahead of us.
Always innovating, figuring out new ways to do stuff. Even, the first time I got exposed to, how they do that thing where you need money for the guy in France to come back over, go do a person-to-person payments from my uncle's account. I have the information, and the money comes in. The first time I got exposed to that deposit, and then they come in and they send half of it with one company and half of it with a different company out of the institution. I'm like, oh my God, I never even thought of that. So they rank it up.
They're smart.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But so talking about crazy, and we talked before, and you talked about you started and got more exposed to the elder abuse. But as far as scams and that trafficking stuff, where are you now? What relationships? And it's interesting because I was thinking about relationships with this podcast, and Sean and you were, frickin' frack back in training days in NEACH. He's now this president and CEO. He's amazing on
incredible.
in a presentation, but you're back because he's the president. He remembers the
Yeah, I just
relationship.
can't believe. I mean, I can't believe it. I mean, Joe, you and Sean worked together at a pizza place as a part-time job in Faneuil Hall, and here he is, a little boy, all grown up, right? And he's done. And I have to say to our members, I don't know how many people remember me, but he has done amazing things. And it's funny. Folks were talking about how we're the best RPA and blah blah blah. And I'm like, you know what? You guys are doing some stuff that I don't know a lot of our RPAs are doing, and it's incredible. But to touch really quickly, because I know probably the human trafficking, it's not just scams. It's just that financial institutions need to know how they're moving funds through their institution. So very quick story, very quick. There was a credit union in the Bay Area that monitors. There's software that can help monitor, you know, untoward or suspect transactions, right? All kinds of software. But they noticed that Greg the plumber, I'm going to use Greg the plumber, out in San Jose, California, is going from San Jose to Vegas to Lake Tahoe to LA he's doing a circle of business. But the businesses are Redbox, CVS, Uber, hotels, Redbox, CVS, Victoria's Secret, Uber, hotel. And they're like, why is a plumber, what is he? So they actually called law enforcement, found this man with 6 underage girls at Oakland Airport, and this credit union thwarted a human trafficking ring. So again, knowing that you might not know that these human traffickers or human smugglers are running funds through your financial institution. And they've got bottom girls that are aged out. They don't put them out anymore, but they're in charge of depositing. So why is Greg the plumber depositing cash in Vegas, San Jose, Lake Tahoe? Why would Greg the plumber be depositing cash at 1:30 in the morning?
Why would he?
Right. So there's just
No,
things
really, why would he? I'm still new to
he
this
wouldn't,
topic.
because Greg's not really a plumber, right? So it's just stuff that we need to be looking at. And we're not seeing victims, whether it's elder abuse or girls or boys that are being trafficked. We're not seeing them come in with their pimp or the elder with their boyfriend or girlfriend or grandson. We need to be monitoring our online stuff and watching.
I think you definitely took a different track with all of this. This is all written for me, all, just something to read. And, you get exposed to this stuff when you travel. And I know I've been in airports and I saw signs in the men's room that said, if you're being trafficked, and it's like, what, wait a minute, that happens? And I don't want to say I'm naive, but I'm naive as far as the real underside of society happening all around us.
It doesn't just happen in Vegas and New York and Miami and South Beach. It happens in Malad, Idaho. It happens in Burlington, Massachusetts. It happens everywhere, right? And there's a couple of great, I'm hoping to do some training, but Polaris is a nonprofit that institutions need to Google it. There's a section that's just for FIs to look for, right? And Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher created Thorn, and that actually goes towards the online. Like Craigslist had a link that you could purchase Craigslist and a bed page. So those are all shut down. But what they do is they go after the online advertisement for that stuff. So we have to educate everybody, right? From all different angles, both on elder abuse and human trafficking and human smuggling. Yeah.
Well, not to end on a bad note, but I am so happy you're back. I'm so happy you're bringing this.
That is a bad note.
I know. It is a bad note.
Did you word that right?
I did.
No, I'm happy too. And I know we're getting out of time, but I'm so thankful that you wanted to chat with me today.
Absolutely. It's, again, the first one, so I was happy that you were coming back. It's like, oh, Patty's coming back. But then just that member response of, oh, Patty, just the stories. And, it's been 20 years, the stories.
I know, it meant a lot to me. Yeah, I stumbled on that.
That was great.
Yeah.
I can't wait to and not that we haven't covered this topic before, but as Sean would say, happy to make and strengthen our bench strength on these topics because they're real. They happen.
And they're unfortunately going to be with us for as long as you and I are around. So
yeah. And sorry, did I ask you who your favorite wrestler was? Let's end on a good note.
I think I'd have to say The Rock because he's better looking than Hulk Hogan now. But I don't know any of the I don't know any other wrestlers other than those two.
Excellent. So that's good to know. It's good that you're in I think there was one person I've interviewed so far that said, yes, I absolutely wanted to be in payments. Everyone else
Really?
kind of just found themselves here.
I need to meet that person.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Thanks, Patty.
Thanks, Joe. Nice to see you.
I'm going to put some links. I'm going to get the links from you, put them in a description so people can find
Wonderful.
Polaris.
I'll get that to you. Yes.
Yeah. Excellent.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
On behalf of NEACH, your trusted resource in payments, and our guests, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to hear more about payments innovation and modernization, you can find the Wrestling Payments Podcast on the podcast page of NEACH.org or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Just search for Wrestling Payments in your podcast app. Thanks for listening.